attachment style does change and adapt. You have a core style of childhood, but nobody falls. There's four styles, right? Nobody falls smack 100% into
Right.
one style. You have predominantly this with a little bit of that. And style can adapt over time depending on your life experiences, positive or negative, and even who you're interacting with. So
Right.
you might act a very certain way when you're interacting with, for example, your mother, versus you might act completely differently when you're interacting with a romantic partner.
Exactly. Yeah.
So the idea that it's fixed in stone, that's a myth. The myth. You will have tendencies towards,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about, do you mind talking a little bit about your attachment style and
Of
in
course.
your own journey? What did you discover about yourself?
I guess the first time I was painfully aware that my attachment style was taking the lead in my relationship was when I just found myself to have a complete lack of agency when it came to leaving my partner. I was so anxiously attached to him. It didn't matter that I was deeply unhappy. I was really unhealthy. I had lost so much weight. And I was making all of my decisions solely based on whatever would please him any way, shape, or form. And I thought in some twisted way that he was the love of my life and that he would change his mind about commitment. Although he said throughout our relationship that he didn't want to be in a committed relationship, but then we'd break up and then we'd become a couple. And then we'd break up and then we'd meet each other's families. And then we'd break up and then he would always go one step further, which kind of kept me lingering for long enough, right? And that's what I mean when I say I had no agency because I knew it was detrimental to me and I knew I was unhappy. But the highs were so incredibly high, but the lows were just heartbreaking. So I was a very clear, anxiously attached individual.
I'm really sorry that you experienced that. What you are describing is the quintessential anxious avoidant dance, right? And I'm
Yeah,
sure that you've learned a lot about that. You don't even need to tell me you were dating an avoidant person.
yeah, yeah. He famously referred to himself as an anti-committal type.
And
To the personality of it all, essentially.
And there is a reason, and I'm sure your research has brought you to this place, but there is a reason that we go after or are attracted to people who, even though consciously you knew better, consciously he told you, I'm not going to commit to you. He
Yeah,
basically told you, I'm going to break your heart.
yeah, no, several
He
times.
did. He told, but you still subconsciously engaged. So,
Yeah,
first of all, let me tell you something about the mind. The mind is guided by upwards of 95, 96, even 97% of our thoughts and emotions and behaviors through
yeah,
our subconscious mind,
yeah. Okay.
not our conscious mind. And the conscious mind, our awareness, cannot outwill the subconscious mind, which means that you and everyone else on the planet, even when they know better,
Yeah,
will always go towards something that is familiar. It is not a weakness in character. It is not, you should have known better, something to be shamed about. It's not. It's the way our minds are wired because they always pull us towards something that is familiar because your mind knows how to handle it. Your mind is not saying, is this good for me? Your subconscious mind, is this good for me? Is it not? I'm
yes,
going to go towards what's familiar because I know how to handle this.
yeah, yeah. No, you're so
So,
right. Thank you for saying that too. It's really nice to hear.
yeah, because I'm sure so many of your friends would have said to you, but he already told you, or why did you already knew? Why would you get yourself into that situation? And it feels very blaming.
Yeah, and oh my gosh, every time the shame I would carry on my shoulders every time I'd come back and be like, "Oh, we're back together." Oh, it was embarrassing. It really was. But at the same time, wholeheartedly want to give myself so much compassion too, because my mom would say this to me the other day. She was like, "You were having a perfectly normal reaction to a very abnormal situation. It's like you're reacting because this person is virtually dragging out the worst in you. Of course you're reacting." And I found it really hard to be able to break the cycle. The only thing that helped was no contact. I had to cut contact completely. And that was the only way. There was no other way.
Yeah, and I'm sure it was extremely
It
painful.
took me years. I tried,
Yeah.
failed, tried again. Yeah, it took me years.
Yeah, it
Triggers.
really is the same as dealing with an addiction.
Yeah,
And the same part of the brain that, for example, will go through withdrawal when you're stopping a drug or cigarettes or alcohol, it feels the same when you're pulling away this addictive substance. In this particular case, you were addicted to the dopamine. The dopamine is a chemical that the brain releases, the feel-good chemical. So the highs are really high and the low is really low. You got addicted to the cycle. You weren't
yeah,
addicted to him.
yeah.
You were addicted to the relief of, oh my God, we're back together. Everything's fine for the next 72 hours.
Yes. And you know what's so interesting about it too is that when I started dating my current boyfriend, I started preparing for the highs and the lows, like the chaos in between, and then just nothing would happen, and I'd be stir
Bored.
crazy almost.
Bored.
It's supposed to be like some sort of drama. And
Something that people who are anxiously preoccupied do, by the way.
oh
You might find yourself doing this. I don't know how long you've been with this other person, but you might find yourself picking some fights. You might find yourself trying to stir things a little bit because you're still used to a little bit more drama, a little bit more heat.
he's calling me out too. Like he's such a like he's so steady.
If you go back even further, at some point you realize fighting became your way to get attention, or it was your trauma response, or raising your voice is what got you a little bit of attention or recognized. There's always a pattern, right? So as humans, we repeat things that work, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
when you break down human behavior, there's really two reasons that we do things, like simplistic terms. Either we're moving towards pleasure or we're moving away from pain. Those are really the only two reasons that we do things in the simplistic of terms.
That's so cool, actually, when you think about it. Either you're moving towards pleasure, or moving away from pain. That is a nice picture when you think about it. If you're just moving towards pleasure, you just notice everything that's beautiful around you and everything that's working. It's essentially a gratitude list.
It's a gratitude list, but sometimes things that bring us pleasure, we don't even realize. So for someone who's been conditioned to argue because it gives them a little bit of attention and it drops a little bit of dopamine, I mean, is pure pleasure. So how are you getting that dopamine, right? So, but again, these are behaviors you may or may not have, but we do find them quite commonly in people who are anxiously
For sure,
attached,
for sure.
that your pain guided you to something better.
Yes.
So that pain served a purpose. And that's a nice way to look at it because I am
Right.
sorry that you went through that, right? And I get this question very often. Should I be healed before I go into another relationship? Healing is not a destination. It is a journey. It's an evolution that happens over time and multiple iterations. And so I don't think you're ever healed. And our best studies will indicate that we actually do our greatest healing in relationship to
Right. I
others.
think that makes sense.
And it does make sense because if you're out on your own and not getting triggered by all these things that were once triggering you, you're like, "Oh, I'm healed. Everything's great."
Yeah.
No, it's when you are back in a situation and the same trigger comes up, do you respond differently? Are you able to stay emotionally regulated? Are you able to take a deep breath and choose a different direction than you once did? That's the indication of healing, not the absence of no longer having any triggers. You will always have triggers. But now that you're in a relationship with a new person, of course, you're going to have some disagreements because that's the nature of a relationship. You're
Right.
never going to be on the same page, but can you respond differently?
Right.